years ago, got to about £1 million turnover. And for the past 10 years or so, I've been focusing on providing support around innovation and around business. And partly about trying to help people avoid some of the mistakes I made that when I was running my company. I wasn't trained to be a business person. I came probably like a lot of you. I come from a different area. I just wanted to kind of do my thing the way that I thought it could be done. And there's a lot of, and it's hard and it's challenging to try and make that work. So I think this is a great opportunity to try and work, not just for, it's not about us doing all the talking, it's about you being able to talk to each other as well. So we'll certainly sort of introduce some of that as well. We're also very lucky to have Andrew. Andrew will introduce himself in a moment, and in fact we'll go around everybody and we can all find out who is here. Yeah, so I think that's the overall plan. So why don't we just start and find out who's here. It's interesting with this program, we're calling this an open accelerator because I think that there are 10 modules we've got which are probably indispensable for everybody who wants to go through that, but not everybody necessarily needs to have the same lessons, and there are some people kind of out there maybe further on down the line who still need to get some support in some specific areas, so they might drop in for certain activities. And I also know that there are two, possibly three people who are very keen to be part of this as a cohort, who can't actually make it today, but I'm expecting them to come in next week and to be part of this for the rest of the program. And towards the end of the session, I'll ask about what you want to do if you want to be part of all of the 10 modules, and that's great. And if we do that, then that helps to give me some focus. And if you are interested in some certain ones, it would just be good to get a sense of what that looks like. So anyway, that's me, that's Mitch. Andrew, can I start and ask you to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi everybody, great to be here. So my name's Andrew. I've worked in software for way too long and worked in startups since 1997. So I've done startups for the last 20 or so years. I'm part of my fifth startup now. So I've started and scaled a couple of companies and been fortunate enough to see some success, seen some failure as well. So most recently, my company, ClickTools, that I co-founded, we bootstrapped that to around 60 people. And then that was acquired by a company called SurveyMonkey and then another company called Calidus. So I left there in 2016, currently doing a little bit of advisory and consulting work. But I'm also a chief revenue officer at a company called Kudo, which is a company in Bournemouth of currently 26 people. So that's my normal day job most of the time now.
To unmute myself before I talk again. Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you.
So Andrew's going to, I'm going to do a bit of an intro, kind of a little bit of an overview of things, and Andrew's going to come in and work you hard. This is going to be very interactive. We want you to go away and try and put into practice straight away some of the things that Andrew's going to be talking about, and then come back and feed back to us as a group, so we can hear what you're trying to do, and then we can get some comments and hopefully give you a proper steer. So I'm just going to go around who I've got sort of from my right. So John had a bit of a surprise because he only signed up last night and hadn't realised it started today. So he's completely in the deep end. But John, if you could just give us 2 minutes, I think probably if we can try and restrict ourselves to 2 minutes because we've got quite a few people to go around, and just tell us a bit about who you are and more importantly, kind of what your business is and what you're trying to get from this session. And take yourself off mute.
Yeah, I've recently registered as a social enterprise, a community interest company, with a mission to help build community cohesion. And as a social enterprise, we'll be developing a number of different revenue streams. The the company is called the Green TLC, which is a shortened version of the Green Transportation Logistics Company. So our core business or revenue will be cargo cycle logistics. So I'll be doing anything you can do in a small diesel van, except I'll be doing it with cargo bikes, e-cargo bikes, and possibly an EV for loads that can't be carried by a cargo bike. So that's the main activity will be home delivery services, but very much a social enterprise with a social mission. And what I'm doing is inspired by. Hang on, how's the time getting on? Yeah, I need to work on my pitch, obviously, but it's a community logistics project, and I'm optimizing the efficiency of last mile logistics by forming neighborhood transition hubs, so that it's possible for a local supplier to deliver to 5 to 10 households in one drop. So it's a kind of a synthesis of transition hubs, a formation of neighbours to help each other live more sustainably, and the logistical efficiency, which is about creating dense delivery networks and delivery zones. So it's anyway, I hope that gives you a rough idea of what I'm trying to do.
Thank you very much, John. That's lovely. Mariella, can I start with you next?
Hi, good morning. So my name is Mariela. I'm Latin American. I was born in Dominican Republic. I live in Spain and now living in UK. So my business idea started in December last year. So I have 1 year already selling. And it's Daily Mind, which is an idea to bring the health and well-being from an early age. Means, as an adult, we are looking mindfulness or to get better in a healthy eating, or, you know, get the balance of our life, working, everything. So my idea was, why we don't introduce that from childhood, like from 0 to 6 years old? Because as I remember, and all my community or all the people I know, they start this journey later on. But I have the opportunity to work for NHS in mental health facility for young people and children. And I saw the gap that we were not introducing these topics or these words or coping mechanisms from an early age. So they take long, and in the way they could have mental health issues, bullying. Also the society now is more intense than before when we grow, and they have more challenges. And now even with the COVID, is more aware that my idea, I think, is necessary. Like, we need to bring it to families. We need to bring it from an early age. Let's talk about when you feel sad. Let's talk about when you feel this and that, no? And what you can do when you do that. So my idea is, well, I start to resell products, physical products, and now I'm in the stage that I want to create courses and digital products and create Daily Mind products. So I'm hoping with you to discover that journey.
Fantastic. Okay, thanks,
Thank
Mariella. That's great.
Okay.
Cecile, you're next on my ladder.
Okay, hi, I'm Cecile. I've during lockdown, I had to shift my focus. I've been working at international adoption for 100 years, and obviously that's sort of gone very quiet. So I have a colleague who I work with in Italy, and her daughter is always wanting me to read her stories to learn her English, to teach her, so she can learn English, and that she now considers me one of her absolutely best favorite friends, and always tells her English teacher how fantastic it is. And I just took this, I thought this is a brilliant idea, because there isn't enough sharing of the joy of stories. Okay, so essentially, I thought, what was something which I really, really loved when I was little, and what I would really, really like everybody else in the whole entire world to have the same feeling, and that was the joy of listening to stories that my mum used to read to me. So that led me to thinking about what stories do I really love, and they're all the classic stories. So it's all Alice in Wonderland, Wind in the Willows, the Water Babies, Peter Pan, etc., etc. So I thought, well, what would be absolutely brilliant is to have stories read out loud to children, videos as an audiobook, but a video book, so that the relationship between the author, the reader, and the child or the learner can all contribute, can all join together. So I've created English Classic Story Time, which is all the classic stories. Well, not all, because I'm not there yet, but that's my product. And they're read out, there's videos, so there's a reader who reads it out loud, who's filmed, so there's a video. The whole book is printed as well, so that people can immediately download and have the whole book with the illustrations as well. There's a vocabulary and expression section in it, and a kind of quiz for comprehension. So essentially, I think there's quite a few segments of the market where it can go. So it can go to, sort of people who are learning to, English as a language, because stories and rhymes and everything are fundamental to build up your language. So just English speakers anyway, to those who are learning English, to those who even old people who are sitting at home on their own. So it's like Audible, but actually there's a personal relationship with it, and it's quiet time as opposed to Audible, your bike, listening to it or doing some other activity. Calm, relaxed, embrace, listen to it. And the stories are empowering, entertaining, educating, and empowering. So that's the message I want to send out to the whole world.
Thank you, Cecile. That sounds great.
Thank you.
Richard, can I turn to you next?
Unmute. Yes, thanks, Anthony. Yes, I'm Richard Spencer, and I run a copywriting agency called 1,000 Monkeys. We're not really a startup, but I think I'd describe myself as an accidental business person who's kind of who's grown organically over a period of time. And we had a very successful year last year, and so far so good this year. But obviously the world has changed around us quite a lot, so it's a good time to sort of reappraise what we're doing. We supply copy and a bit of brand strategy, I suppose, to a wide range of businesses, but particularly in the HE sector, so universities and business to business services, particular sort of areas of strength for us. Or healthcare has just joined that in being quite an interesting area for us to develop. And we do quite a lot on training, which obviously fell off a bit of a cliff when the COVID thing hit, because it was very much in situ, in-house, running workshops around training teams to improve their copywriting. But online versions of that are now sort of developing quite nicely. So that's an aspect of business I'm quite keen to develop a bit more, make more central to the business plans. So there's a bit of a shift in that direction. And then obviously just reappraise where we are in terms of what clients are looking for at the moment and how we kind of take the business forward. Yeah, I think that's probably a good enough summary. I liked your filled in the form, and on the one online, it asked you for, what was it, the high level concept, I think was the online version. I described it as Viagra for words.
What?
Viagra for words.
And a Viagra.
Right.
Okay.
So that could be your new strapline.
Exactly.
Okay. Brilliant. Okay, thanks, Richard. So Paul, can I come to you next, please?
Yeah. Hi guys, how's everyone doing? I'm a fourth director in a company. We've been growing organically as well over the last 4 years. We all do different jobs. I used to be an actor, and I'm from the arts as well. And then I started doing martial arts when I was not working. And I now teach Tai Chi and have my own martial arts school in Bournemouth. And we then started developing what we do now. So holistic audio is we build products and create experiences that are immersive and have sensory aspects to help with development, but also on the other end of things to help calm. This is very generalistic, but it's all based around health. So it's although a lot of our products could be used in an entertainment kind of way or leisure way, and we are looking at those markets at some point. We've primarily been working with special needs, people with dementia, autism, Parkinson's disease, sort of any care setting, you name it. We've kind of looked at how our products work. We've done tests with it and so on. And it's all done with sound and vibration, which sounds a bit hippie trippy, but it's not. It's understanding sound frequencies and how they affect physical matter. And so if you had laid on our vibrasonic bed, then you would feel the vibrations of the sound that's being played, but not just like in a shaking for your muscles. It's literally the sound frequency going into your body through something called bone conduction. And the way you set the speakers to create this what's called a stereo field, so it becomes seriously immersive. And then the way we write the music and so on is all geared to take people on a specific journey, to kind of catch you in a certain state, take you to a certain place, and then hopefully bring you back out. On the basic level, forgive the expression, for like a standard person that doesn't have any issues, it's incredibly relaxing. For those with high stress levels, it helps brings it down. If you guys heard of Amigo Loans here in Bournemouth, quite a strong finance company. We took one of the beds in there for a week and did all day, every day, and recorded the responses, which were really good. And so we're at a point where we've actually got quite a few products designed and really high level prototypes made. And we're getting to a point where we need to get past the idea and sort of stage and start actually physically building to sell and then move into sales and so on. So we have done sales. We've had in the odd thing. For example, last year in December, we built a 360-degree sensory room that uses, like you've got film all the way around you. The floor has our tech in the bottom that does the vibration. We create a soundscape. It's called ambisonics, which is like 3D. So if I saw behind me, or if in front of me there was like a waterfall, and I walked closer towards it, it will get louder. And so it gives you a sense of space and as close to realism as you can possibly get. How good that is depends on what kit you put in and so on. There's games that you can play with motion capture and all this kind of stuff. And so we have these ideas, and our strapline is next generation sensory solutions. And it's just, so a lot of what we do has been bespoke up to now, but from that we've then created products to pass on. And so we're just at a point where we need to raise money, and obviously a big part of that is the business plan and doing it correctly, which is, I don't think we're struggling per se, but I think there are gaps that we don't have enough knowledge on how to fulfill and fill those gaps. So.
Right. Thank you, Paul. That's
No
great. Judith, can I turn to you now, please?
Yes, hello, everyone. My idea is very fledgling. It's very recent, and I have a business background. I ran my own management consultancy in London for about 20, 25 years. And since moving to Bournemouth about 12, 13 years ago, I've been very involved with voluntary work. So in health, in music, and in publishing, which I know well. My idea, in its very fledgling format, is to help empower people in the current health situation. I'm right at the beginning stage of planning it, organizing its various audiences, how I would market it, and how I could make a business out of it. I would like, someone mentioned revenue streams, and nothing happens until someone puts money on the table. So I I want it to be a perfectly formed product before I do that. I want to get the product right. And I can see various marketplaces this would be interesting for, but I've been very interested and encouraged to hear from everyone else, and that is my offering. So I need help with planning and bringing it to life.
Fantastic, thank you, Judith. Your connection was a bit in and out for me, but I think we've got most of that, which is great. So finally, Carolyn. Yes, you can't hide. You will have to speak.
Cool. So yeah, I'm Carolyn. I'm an ex-marketer, did 15 years in corporate, then left corporate and marketing pretty much. Retrained as a psychologist and currently training as a cyber psychologist. And what that is about understanding human behavior around technology, and specifically around the internet and how people engage with technology and how that's changing human behavior in particular, but also in general. My speciality is in remote working and internet communication for people in business, but also looking at VR and soft skills training in virtual reality. But what I have done is, because cyber psychology is very much an academic and healthcare area at the moment, there's very few people who know, in the general public, who know what cyber psychology is. And what my aim is to make cyber psychology famous. So I launched a website called Cybercology in January, and it's kind of been spluttering along because I'm still doing my master's in cyber psychology. So when I have time, I add to it. But from January, when I'm finished my master's, I want to launch it as I kind of do a bit of a soft launch, but actually make cyber psychology famous and bring all the incredible insights from academia and translate that into a easy to consume nugget form of insights for journalists, public, parents, business people, to take all of these areas and put it on one place where people can easily find out what's going on, look at behaviors, put the good and the bad behaviors around social media, technology, blah, 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 in one place. And really what I'm hoping that these sessions will do is help me to focus on maximizing and fulfilling that aim of making cyber psychology famous, and to monetize it and kind of find a way to make money for me. Because if I'm going to put all that effort in, I want money, lots of it, quickly, or for the long term, or whatever it is. So yeah, you don't build a business without making a profit. So that's what I want to do, and I need help doing that.
Excellent. Well, that's what we're here for, Karen. You've all got to make some money. Even if you're a social enterprise, you still need to make some money, because otherwise the social enterprise doesn't keep going.
And if I can make a suggestion, if you can help parents get their teenagers off the phone, you've made $1 million.
But actually, that's not, because that's part of, even that is to debunk the what the media's put out there as the bad side of psychology, the cyber.
I know when you had, yeah, okay.
So it's kind of, part of this is debunking.
Andrew, they've started already. It's
Exactly.
So, look, thank you so much for that. It's really, really interesting. Some of the things that it seems to be that there's a few themes I'm picking up on, which are around, there's something around health, there's something around training, something around people and community, and those seem to be things which you've all got a kind of a sense of that in some shape or form. And you know, some of you are being very product led, some of you are being a bit more service led, some of you are physical products, some of you are more digital products, and so there's a lot of difference. And I think what's great about that difference is that you should feel, hopefully you feel comfortable about being open about what you're trying to do, because I think in terms of trying to get the most out of this, the more open you can talk about what your aims are, what you're trying to achieve, then the more honest the help that I and Andrew in particular can give back, and some of that feedback, and also amongst yourselves as well, as we just saw, you know, with Cecile and Carolyn. It's brilliant. I mean, I think I don't want to close those conversations down, just want to get a bit further on before we open them up. But I think that's brilliant because you've all got a lot of skills, and you all come with skills from other areas as well. And I think being able to feed that into it is that, you know, you're in a similar situation in terms of you're developing a business, but you've all got a lot of experience from doing things previously, and all of that helps. All of that kind of contributes into elements. I'm going to crack on and do a bit more sort of preamble. But before we do that, Andrew, do you want to make any comments at this stage?
No, not at the moment, Anthony. Fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right. Okay. Well,
Anthony, I just want to say before you change the topic that I have Phone Detox.
Okay.
Which is about technology detox.
Okay.
Yes, I found it in the line.
Great. All right. We'll. It's going to get so contentious. I'm really looking forward to it. So I'm going to try and share a screen. Right. And hold on 1 second.
Actually, there is one thing, Anthony, just while I think of it while you're doing that.
Yeah,
I was thinking it's going to suggest maybe if anybody has any questions that they didn't want to interrupt any of the sessions with, then we could put them in the chat and we could answer those questions at the end if we haven't covered them off, maybe as a suggestion, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's a good plan. Right, okay, well look, I'm just going to really do a bit of preamble and just kind of set the scene a little bit, and then we'll dive into Andrew's stuff in 10-15 minutes. So here we go. Can you all see the thing that says CISO sessions, Southern and South?
Yes.
Great, okay.
Yeah.
So, as Carolyn says, how do you build a profitable business? So building a business is one thing, but actually trying to make it profitable is important. So we are going to look at some of the kind of the basic kind of underlying principles about what a startup is and the basis underlying all of this. And then Andrew's going to look in terms of setting up a startup, the structure, the founder values, and really focusing in on that lean model canvas. And then we're going to do a group exercise. You're going to have a chance to start putting all of that stuff into some structure, and then we'll feed back again with everybody afterwards. So here we go. Here is a roadmap. So this is the journey that every startup needs to go through. You're going to start off with this idea over here, and then there's some analysis to kind of work out, you know, is the idea any good? Is there some traction in that? Are people interested in that? And then there's a lot of time in terms of working out the strategy, thinking about who your customers are. There's a little bit in terms of kind of what the processes are, how you're actually going to deliver some of this. And then it comes into planning all of this, and then finally kind of getting into the implementation stage. So before you start the implementing, which is really about, you know, building something, getting it out there, having a reaction, seeing what the response is. We are going to be talking about research and things as well, but I mean, Andrew's kind of quite keen on just getting out and putting something out there in a very lean process just to try and get some feedback. But actually there's a lot of thinking that needs to go in terms of making sure that this implementation works well. So that's really what we're going to be focusing on over these next coming weeks. I mean, ideally the vision for me is that once you start building things, once you start monetizing things, it's great. But if you want to get cracking, you probably will need some more money at some stage as well. And not being afraid of thinking about that, and not thinking that this is something you have to do just by yourselves, and that there is a chance to try and develop a core business which would be interesting to other people. And if it's interesting to other people, then people might be prepared to put some money and investment into that. So what we want to get by the end of this process, and it's not actually a workshop, but I think it may well be something that we introduce in the beginning of next year, is thinking about how do you pitch to investors, because I think that's important. Now, investors probably, most of the time, especially angel investors, are interested in investing something that can show some traction. Now, that has to be at least one sale. It doesn't have to be necessarily an amazing business. It all depends on what sort of investors that you can attract. So what we want to do by the end of this is to come up with a plan which has got the robustness, which means that you could apply for Innovate UK funding. So if you've got an element of innovation in there, if there's a strong element of something which is, you can justify as being quite original, then Innovate UK is a body which has got a lot of money from public funds in order to try and support that new innovation in the UK market. Virgin Startup is an alternative thing. I mean, they focus more on loans, but again, they've got a very interesting application process. And if we can answer all the questions that they put in there in a robust way, we're doing something well. And then, you know, you can get to the likes of Sequoia and some of the massive VC firms. I think there's probably 1 or 2 steps you might want to go to before we get there. And as an American company, they're a lot more predisposed to investing in untried businesses in a way that we really aren't in the UK. But anyway, we want to get to the stage where you've got a detailed business plan and you can look for that next stage investment or grant funding or other opportunities. So I just thought it'd be interesting just to have a look at Reid Hoffman. So Reid Hoffman is the founder of LinkedIn. And obviously we all know LinkedIn, and he's done quite well with it. But I thought it was interesting just to have a look at the journey that he went on in order to get to that stage. So he was studying in Oxford, had an idea, went straight into talking to some investors, and the investors said, well, you've got nothing here, it's just an idea, we're not going to put any money into it. So he went away, he got a job, he got some experience, he developed a kind of more robust thinking, worked with Apple, and then eventually resigned to start up his own business. And he created something called SocialNet. And it was okay, but he left it because it wasn't really working. It wasn't a model that was successful. So again, coming back to Carolyn's point, trying to get a kind of a robust business model is very important. So, you know, so far, you know, 1 failure, a bit of experience, another failure, but lots of experience, and then got together with some people who he knew, who had set up this thing called PayPal, and joined in with them, and you know, PayPal actually did quite well. And on the back of selling through to eBay, when you've got $1.5 billion, that's quite a nice exit to have. But it gave him the capital to then start putting that into LinkedIn in 2003. So he again got more money from Sequoia Capital, and started to think about, well, one kind of LinkedIn was great in terms of connecting people, but then it was like, well, how are we going to monetize this? How do we get some revenue out of this? So that was then thinking about the whole revenue model, and then employed a really strong team to work with him. And when this slide was done, actually it's getting quite old now, I need to update it with something. But anyway, it's 225 million. I'm sure it's probably got a lot more than that by now. And it's a phenomenally successful site. But, you know, it started from very modest background. So I think that's always good to remember, that this is a journey. It's not necessarily coming in with a final thing. And that, you know, a few thoughts about how this comes from Anna Vital, a visual journalist at Funders and Founders. So she was just kind of picking up on some of the things which you know, people have said in terms of how to be a good and a wise entrepreneur. So some of them are a bit, you know, maybe overly American for a British market and palate. But I thought this again was a quote from Reid Hoffman, which says, if you're not embarrassed by the first version of your product, you've launched too late. So I think what that for me means is that it doesn't matter if it succeeds straight away. It's about just getting it out there, and it doesn't matter whether it's the finished model, because if it's finished, you know, the chances are you've overdeveloped. You just need to make sure that there is interest in this, and you can capitalize on that interest. And, you know, working on the right thing is more important than working hard. Well, I think you probably have to do a bit of both, to be honest. But I thought, you know, just a few things, and I'm happy to share these slides with you if you'd like to have a look at these later. For instance, so one of the companies that came on the first accelerator program we did in Bournemouth was called Sensei. They are an Internet of Things company. They were developing some software which would enable dumb sensors which are on machines to have intelligence. So it's all fine measuring stuff through a sensor, but you need to be able to interpret that as well. But they thought, right, there's a gap in the market in agriculture. You know, if you put sensors in the ground, it can tell you, is there enough water in the ground? Is the weather right? You know, all of this kind of agri-tech thing. And they got absolutely nowhere with it. it was really hard, and so they pivoted, and they focused on manufacturing instead. In the time when we first talked with them to where they're at now, they've raised over £1.25 million in investment. And so I think don't be wedded to the fact that what you're doing right now is the finished product. The chances are it will change. The chances are you do need to respond to some of the market forces and some of the reaction and responses that you have. And so you have a company like Sensei who are quite happy to, put on their website language which probably none of us understand. I have no idea what a predictive maintenance initiative necessarily is. But once you've focused on what your market is, it's okay, because you can speak the language that the market is speaking. And that's what they're doing there. So I just wanted to kind of just give a little flavor in terms of, what we have to do. So this is an old African proverb: if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And that really is the focus of what this cohort, this group is about being able to share our ideas and our ambitions, and not being afraid to be open about, this is hard. I mean, I know from my own experience of setting up a business on my own, I found it really hard. It was really tiring. And I'm not sure I ever quite fully recovered from the pressure that you go through, because it's exhausting. And I think if you can find other people to work with, that's good. I mean, also kind of from an investment point of view, investors on the whole prefer to invest in companies that have got 2 or 3 founders in them, because they appreciate that having a wider skill set is valuable, but also doing this alone is challenging. So don't beat yourself up about this if you find it's difficult, because it is going to be hard. But also feel free to use what we have as a group over the next 10 weeks to share some of that burden as well. I think that's all I really wanted to say for the moment. And let's kind of dive into some of the practicals and move on to Andrew.
Thank you, Anthony. So I thought it worth starting with just a little bit more information. I thought I'd add a bit of colour to the description just to give you a bit more background. So I think I covered some of the summary then. I've worked in computer software for a long time, and startups for actually a long time as well. But I've seen some success, I've seen failure, and I just thought worth going through just through those really briefly, just to tell you in terms of some of the success and failure I've had, in that it is very much a journey. So my first startup in 1997, we raised around over £1.5 million venture capital, which in those times was a lot of money. We grew revenues to £1.5 million in 2 years, and then I left because I basically fell out with my other co-founders. We had some really big arguments. I disagreed with the way that the business was going and left. And I'll come back to some of these points later on, because whilst you absolutely need other people around you to go far, founder alignment. So for example, whether founders get on, if you've got a co-founder, then I don't know the exact percentage, but it's around 70% of startups fail, not because of market, but because of founder alignment. Either co-founders don't get on, argue, fall out, and the company falls apart. The second one was a basically sports gaming company. We raised half our amount of venture capital that we wanted. And then if anybody's old enough to remember 2001 and was interested in the internet, you will know that there was a thing called a bubble, and it burst in 2001, and our VC basically disappeared overnight. We had a phone call saying that money we were going to give you this week, we are not going to give you. And we were left, and we couldn't basically carry on the business without that money. So we closed it. Then that took me into a company called ClickTools, who basically did surveys. So we did customer satisfaction surveys. And because we couldn't raise any VC, we bootstrapped that. We started it with 3 of us. I ate beans on toast for 18 months, didn't earn any money. And we got through that fairly trying, difficult period. Never took any money, never had any debt. And over a course of 15 years, from probably 8 years really, because the first 6 years were just trying to build things. We bootstrapped that to, it was actually more than 55 people, nearer 60 people. And then we went through 2 acquisitions. And then I left Calidus after being there for 12 months, 6 months, who were the larger company. I then started another startup called Statsy, and we got to MVP, had about 200 users. So MVP is minimum viable product, basically. So it's the thing you launched to start with that you should be embarrassed about. And I was sort of embarrassed about it. Had 200 customers, but I got bored. And why that's important is that if you're embarking on this journey, I know some of you are already on this journey, you sort of have to be passionate about what you do. If starting a business is probably the hardest thing you'll ever do in your life. And if you're not passionate about what you're doing, it's going to be doubly hard. So if you're not living it and breathing it and loving it, and what I found at Statsy is that I just didn't have the passion to work in the way I needed to work, so I stopped. So I now have a full-time day job, which is a chief revenue officer at Kudo, as I mentioned, 26 people. But I also still do some advisory stuff. And I think the point I'd raise there is that although my work has predominantly been in software, a lot of the organizations and people that I speak to are not software people in terms of startups. The startup journey is very similar, whether you're running a coaching business, whether it's a physical product business, whether it's a training business, it doesn't matter. The fundamentals are exactly the same. So more recently, I've helped a cannabis startup in the USA. I've helped a couple of physical product companies. I've helped some retail companies, and the challenges are all very, very similar. So despite my software bias, I do have deep knowledge of software. It's not just that. So hopefully, I'll be more than happy to help any questions you've got, whether on this session or outside of those sessions as well. So I think what we're going to focus on today is literally the start of the journey and how you maybe want to think about your business. And as Anthony mentioned, we've got quite a really good spread of people here, from Richard with 1,000 Monkeys, who've I've met before. I think we've met before, Richard. An established business doing very well. And could we move to the next slide, Anthony, if that's okay? Thank you. Fundamentally, we're going to spend a bit of time talking about your proposition. And we'll come on to an exercise. So I'm not going to talk for very long, because we want you to basically start to answer some of these questions. And I think there are 9 questions that you fundamentally need to consider at the start and during the life of your business. So your answers to these questions may change over time. Okay, so don't think of that you write the questions down, answer them, and never change them. This will be a moving feast, and you should always be thinking through what your answers to these questions are. But before this, there's probably one question that's not in the lean canvas, is that you have to decide what sort of business do you want to be? And what I mean by that is, do you want a lifestyle business? So do you want to just earn good consulting, advice revenue, coaching revenue? Do you want to sell 10 products, 100 products? Or do you want to sell, do you want to be the next LinkedIn, or the next Microsoft, or the next Huel, or the next whatever business you admire? Do you want to be those, or do you want a lifestyle business? Because based on that choice will determine a lot of the questions that you answer here, and will determine a path that you go on. So for example, Cecile mentioned Audible. So if Cecile wants to basically say, well, from her business perspective, I want to basically overtake Audible as the largest provider of video books, although Audible don't do video books, they do audiobooks, see what I mean? If I want to overtake Audible, that's a very different proposition and challenge for Cecile to say, well, I actually want something where, I've got 1,000 customers and I sell 200 stories, and it just gives me a nice life. They're very, very different things, and the way that you approach those businesses are very different. So, for example, if you need to raise money and you decide that you might need to go and speak to business angels or venture capital companies, the venture capital companies and angels probably won't be that interested in a lifestyle business. They would be interested if Cecile went, I want to basically overtake Audible. If Cecile went and said, I just want to develop 20 stories and get 100 customers, it's very difficult to part money out of people if you're not showing that level of belief to give them the reward based on the money. So the reason I mention that is that I've spent some time talking with people who are absolutely clear that they want a lifestyle business. You know, they want to employ maybe one person, take a good salary, be profitable, but not grow it to employ lots of people. But they're trying to write a business plan to go and raise £1 million from a business angel or a venture capital company, and the two don't meet. Nobody will give you money. They're not banks. They're there to make money. So generally, if people want to invest in you, they will want to see 10 times returns on that money. So if somebody gives you £10,000, they will want to understand how they are likely to get £100,000 back. So if you're not building a business that gives them that return, there's no point asking them for that amount of money. So just bearing in mind what sort of business you want to be helps you set your own expectations about where you're going and how you'll achieve it. Now, none of those ideas are bad things. You have to do what's right for you. But it's exceptionally admirable to build a lifestyle business. If that's what you want to do, it's the greatest thing in the world. But don't confuse the two things. So once you've decided that, we need to think about 9 questions, okay? And the first one is probably the most important. So what problem are you going to solve? So interestingly, in the introductions that we had, I don't think I heard one person talk about a problem. Everybody mentioned a feature or a function or what they did, but they didn't address a problem that anybody had that they were trying to solve. And this sort of represents a nice subtle mindset shift, in that the way that you think about a business generally is like, well, who am I helping to do what better than they do it already? What's the problem I'm going to solve? Because this is fundamentally what you need to articulate to help you understand what your business is. You don't express it in a way that says what it does. We come to that a little bit later, but what's the problem? Okay. So once I've got a feel for that, I then need to understand, well, who am I actually solving this problem for? Okay. Who's got the problem? Who am I solving it for? Third question, why are you different? So why would somebody talk to me about solving this problem for them as opposed to anybody else? So I'll go back to Cecile. Sorry, I'm not picking on you, Cecile, but you're my third. I can see you. And in terms of, so Cecile's question, one of the questions that Cecile might have there is, well, why would somebody choose English storage solution over Audible? What is the difference? How do I articulate that? How do I articulate in a way that the people I'm talking to, solving the problem, realize value and it lines into their problem, not just so that it makes them go and buy Audible? So the fourth thing is, what am I actually offering them? Okay, so in terms of this difference, what is my difference then? What does that really look like? Okay, and then 5, how do I sell it? As we talked about, it was great to hear a couple of the people talk about revenue and profit. You guys, we're not here to give things away for free. One of the fallacies of, I think, a lot of people's startups is that they don't charge for things early enough. I think there's a belief that you can, Anthony talked about it a little bit earlier, and research is fine. It's absolutely fine. But you ideally want to be charging people for things as quickly as you can. Do not do anything for free, or do as little as you can for free, even if you're calling it research. Okay? And that model, again, how you sell it to them may change over time, but get your hat on with I need money for this from day one. And there are ways that you can sell from day one or day 2 or day 10 without and sell research without it seeming like research. Number 6, and some things, one thing a lot of people tend to forget is that they forget what will actually cost them money. So people tend to ignore that, and it can come back later on and cause you some challenges. So is it people? Is it licensing? Is it marketing? So for example, if you are selling into general consumers relatively cheaply, so if you're selling a subscription, it's relatively cheap, for example, and you're selling to consumers, you will either need a lot of marketing money or a lot of time or a huge slice of luck. One of those 3 things, preferably more than one. Otherwise, if you're selling something at £10 a month, just work out the metrics of if you want to become £1 million business, how many people you need to sell to become £1 million business, and then do the maths on how many people you'll actually need to speak to. Then that starts to become important. And obviously the 7 is how you make money. So the 6 and 7 are tied in, but you've got to make sure you can do this over a period of time. You've got to make sure you can do it profitably. You may accept to start with that you do it at a loss as a loss leader, but over time you want to be confident that you can make money doing what you're doing. Otherwise there's little point, whether it be social enterprise or for profit or a B Corp or non-profit. You have to make money to pay salaries, to keep yourself going, to hopefully generate a profit or some form of revenue that can put back into your enterprise. Number 8 is, how do you measure progress? And there are 2 aspects to that. I think the first one is set yourself realistic goals. So don't try and whilst you need to think big, or think big in terms of where you're trying to get to, the goals that sometimes people set become too unobtainable too quickly. And what I mean by that is, let's go to my £1 million revenue example again. If I want to get to £1 million revenue, I don't set myself a goal of getting to £1 million revenue. My goal should be, I want to get to £1,000 revenue. And then from there, it's how I may get to £10,000 revenue. And from there, it may be how we get to £100,000 revenue. And the reason of that is that you will do things in very, very different ways. So the way that you get your first 10 customers is very different from the way you get your first 100, and it's very different from the way you get your first 1,000. And it's very different from the way you get more up. Your tactics are different. You'll have to spend different amounts of money. Your product will change. So having goals that are achievable and that you can absolutely measure and see are key. I speak to lots of organized companies and people and founders, and they seem to be focused on building a £10 million business or a £100 million business or being the next whatever it may be, but they haven't even got one customer. And what they need to do is they need to focus on getting one paying customer, not where the millionth one's coming from. You know, it's a journey. It will take time, and you need to prepare yourself for that long journey. So just as a indicator of that, the average in terms of and a lot of you may not want to, which is absolutely fine, but if you wanted to get to the stage where somebody came to buy your business, the average amount of time for people to conclude a successful exit of their business is 14 years. So most non-funded, so if you've bootstrapped, i.e. you've raised the money yourself or sold it, generated money through sales, so that's called bootstrapped. You haven't taken any external investment. The average time to sell your business or to get to the stage where your business has grown to a stage where somebody wants to buy it is 14 years. If you raise venture capital, the average time is 7 years. So there are absolutely exceptions to the rule. You may well be the next great big thing and sell your business in 18 months or a year. You may be one of the 90% of businesses that never get past year 2, who fail. But if you get through that journey and want to sell your business, the average time if you're funded is 7 years, non-funded is 14 years. So again, this, you know, the thing I wanted is this takes time. You need to be committed, and it will be tough. It'll be the greatest thing in the world. It's absolutely brilliant, but it's hard. And number 9 is really about, if you're going on this long journey, you need to think about, how will I protect my business? So how do I get my business, how do I stop it being, once I'm a bit of my way in my journey, what do I have that will mean that it's difficult for people to come in and compete against me, or for my business to fail? And that could be lots of things. Okay, it could be the number of customers you've got. It could be some unique offering. It could be a unique bit of technology. It could be lots of things. But you need to think about building bridges and moats between you and the competition. So those 10 questions are fundamental to any plan. And if you're writing a business plan, so I think Paul mentioned that is struggling to write a plan. In terms of a content for a plan, these are the questions that you sort of need to answer in any business plan. You may structure it very differently, but it's these things that fundamentally a business plan will cover. So if you wouldn't mind moving on, Anthony, if that's okay.
Yeah, I've actually got...
You can do the video now.
I've got a video, if you'd like me to put that. We can move on. We can come back to that if you like.
Yeah, go for the video.
Yeah, okay. So we are going to come into this lean model canvas in a second, but I thought I'd give you a video just to kind of give you a little bit of context. So this is the video. So we're going to start applying this ourselves in a moment, but just so you get an idea, this is how Airbnb might have done it.
Welcome to Railsware Academy. This is an educational project by Railsware, a product studio helping startups build software solutions from scratch. Today, we're presenting the final episode of our video series dedicated to Unicorn. Why Lean Canvas? This tool was developed by Ash Maurya to help startups validate their business ideas before bootstrapping. Watch our Lean Canvas tutorial to learn how it works. In 2007, a website called Air Bed and Breakfast came out. It was a minimum viable product of a lodging startup initiated by 2 fellows, Brian Chesky and Joe Gebbia. A year later, the startup name turned into simple Airbnb. And in 2018, the market value of this company reached $38 billion. The story began with a problem. Airbnb founders noticed that visitors of some local conference failed to find accommodation options due to hotel overbooking. Also, staying in hotels provided no authentic experiences of a location to travelers. On the other hand, homeowners that could and would rent out vacant areas on a day-by-day basis experienced difficulties in monetizing their efforts. Besides, home sharing culture was rather uncultivated, and the existing alternative Booking.com or Hotels.com did not focus on these problems. Brian and Joe, Nathan joined them later, came up with a solution to build an online service where travelers could rent an affordable local apartment and homeowners could earn extra money by renting out vacant areas. The aim was made at 2 customer segments: travelers that look for an adequate accommodation experience for a low price, and people having some accommodation options and willing to become a host. Meanwhile, early adopters of the service were homeowners ready to share their residence and earn money as hosts. Such a win-win deal was Airbnb's unique value proposition. Homeowners got extra monetization and travelers could enjoy the authentic experience of the local area. sharing economy and possibility for everyone to become a host were the high-level concepts of the startup. For travelers, win for homeowners, and win for Airbnb. The company relied on fees for travelers as the main revenue stream, and it worked out. All the while, the startup was dealing with the costs regular for nearby businesses. In addition to development, hosting, marketing costs, and payroll, Airbnb had to spend money on making attractive photos of the areas for renting. Also, they got the homeowners insured. The growth strategy counted on several metrics. Airbnb monitored the number of used bookings per host, the number of hosts applied, and regular digital product metrics like Net Promoter Score and active users. Watch our tutorial to learn more about performance metrics. And what about the unfair advantage Airbnb provided back in its bootstrapping times? The startup allowed any homeowner to rent out space and make on it. Hosts were insured by default. That was another attractive factor for it to get in. The trust building, of course. Either visitors or hosts could leave their feedback and rate each other. This tailored a bidirectional rating system and provided a better experience for all users. The last thing to cover is the channels to reach customers. Back then, the startup could rely on recommendations and referrals, as well as online and offline advertising. And that's it. The Airbnb link canvas is ready. Don't forget to like it. Also, feel free to share your comments if you think that's
There, I think that gives you enough of an idea. Let me come back to the other one. Go on with them. There we are. Right, back to you, Andrew.
Thank you, Anthony. So the Airbnb story is an interesting one, actually, because if you actually, I think they've written a book, but if you look at their story, the problem that they were actually trying to solve was they had two problems. Their first problem, fundamentally, was that they didn't have enough money to pay their rent. That was their problem. They'd moved from New York and they were struggling to get work and couldn't afford their rent. And so they needed money to pay their rent. And what happened was they found that there was a convention in San Francisco. So if you've not been to San Francisco, great city, by the way, everybody should visit, but it tends to get outrageously packed at times when there are conventions and exhibitions and conferences in town at the big conference center there. And there was a big convention in town for the founders, and there were signs going around saying all the hotel rooms are booked. So they basically put a post out on Craigslist or somewhere and basically blow up beds in their room and sold them. So they sold 3 or 4 blow up beds in their apartment to 4 people and didn't have a website and called it I think they actually called it Air Bed and Breakfast, I think, or something like that, and sold it. They then realized there could be an opportunity there, and so they were charging from day one. They had somebody paying for their product from day one. They didn't say, does anybody want to come and try this for free to see what you think? It was some money, can we sell it? And they sold it. So they then sort of had the idea and started to build it. They built out a website, didn't have any customers, and it took them 2 years to basically get any sign of like their 100th booking or something. It took them an age. Lots of people dismissed the idea. Nobody said it would work. There were lots of people saying it would never go mainstream. And then in 2009, I think it was, they became part of Y Combinator, which is a big accelerator in San Francisco. And 2 years after that, they'd had a million bookings through the site. And the important part there is that it generally takes, and again, it's a vast generalization, but it sort of does tend to work, is it sort of takes you about 2 years to figure out whether you've got something that you think can scale to a proper business or not. It takes you 2 years to understand who your customer is, how you're selling it. So these points here, that lean canvas for Airbnb is really interesting, because I think if they'd have actually written it down to start with, what they'd have written out would have been very different. So that was written with the benefit of hindsight. Sorry, that's something falling off my desk. Benefit of hindsight. But it will change. So what you see in this, the reason that we do this document rather than write a big 30-page business plan is that you will need to keep coming back to these things and rethinking how you're doing it. So am I charging in the right way? Is my solution good enough? Is it the right customer? Am I spending too much money? Okay, so don't think of it as a static thing that changes. It will change. But in the on the slide in front of you, basically the questions that we're asking are mapped to, this is wrong actually, the numbers are slightly wrong. So the problem is basically question number 1. Okay, the one on the right hand side, so the slide I sent you was the updated one, Anthony, but that's fine. The customer segment on the right hand side is number 2. The unique value proposition in the middle is number 3. And then the solution is actually number 4. 5 is the channels, which is currently number 4. The costs. 7 is the revenue. 8 is the metrics. And then 9 is your unfair advantage. So that's the way that you fill out the chart. So the exercise and the point of this task now is for you to start to think about how you fill out that business plan. So yeah, somebody's just...
Sorry, could I interject?
Yeah, of course you can.
Before you go any further, Andrew, sorry. Could I just ask you to read out the order? You've just said that.
Yeah, of course. Sorry, yeah.
Again,
yeah.
Because I was writing, so I've got problem. Is that
Yeah,
number
so
1?
problem is number 1.
Yes.
So customer segments is number 2.
Yeah.
Unique value proposition in the middle is number 3.
Yes.
Solution is number 4.
Yes.
Number 5 is the channels, so path to customers.
Yes.
6 is the cost structure. So I'll put this in the chat as well. So 6 is the cost structure, sorry.
Yes.
7 is revenue streams.
Yes.
8 is the metrics.
Yes.
And then 9 is the unfair advantage.
Thank you.
Okay, I will paste that into the chat as well. So the somebody's just mentioned in the chat around the Excel about the business model canvas. So the business model canvas is basically a little bit more complicated. This is a lean canvas, so it's really there to try and start you to get going. You can use the business model canvas. It's just a bit more complicated, and you sort of have to find the one that works for you, if that makes sense. I'm just going to put in the chat. If I can, I will put in the questions.
And just in terms of doing this yourself, I put in 2 links. One is just a blank thing that you can download and print. You might want to write in it. The other is a sign-up service, and it's free for 30 days. So if you want to sign up, please do. But it's kind of, but it allows you to then fill things in online rather than having to write things onto a bit of paper. So depending on which you prefer, please feel free to select an option. I think LeanStack's got a lot of other tools and things which you might want to dip into later. So it's probably no harm in signing up to it at the moment. Just remember, you only got it for 30 days. Although personally,
Sorry to
I quite like
interrupt.
writing on paper. Sorry?
Sorry, Anthony. In the Excel I add, I see that the second label said, like you said, link Canva. Looks like have the business model in the first one and the second, the link Canva.
Ah, okay.
So it looks like I still have it. Just because I like to fill in, and it's an Excel, just in case could be useful, but I'm agree that it's different things.
Well, I mean, essentially, if it says the same things that you've got in Andrew's slide here, then that's probably the lean model canvas. Sorry, I just saw the link and didn't actually click on it before I replied.
I've just pasted in the chat basically the questions and the segments. So I think the intention now, if I'm right, Anthony, is that if everyone wants to have a bit of a go at starting to fill out the canvas, however they want to do it, I'm happy to stay on the Zoom and answer any questions or chat about anything at all. And then I think, if I'm right, Anthony, the intention is to sort of come back into the group consciously at how long did you want to, and so we can potentially talk through a couple of examples.
Yeah,
right,
I mean, yeah. How long do you think we should give people to have a stab at this?
I don't know. What do you think? What time is it now? 20? Should we walk to 1:45?
Yeah. So when you see what you can do in 20 minutes, and then we'll just be on here, and if you want to ask some questions, go for it. But otherwise, feel free just to kind of ignore the group and have a go, and then just come back. We'll have a bit of feedback. Sorry, Cecile.
Yeah, I just want to, because if you've got different segments of customers, would you do you just try and find the one segment that would work the best? You know, breaking it all down as to why and why? Would you just say, okay, I have this customer, you know, sort of say like English as a second language customer, or, you know, in the UK, and then somebody who's a foreigner who is learning English in their own country. How would you set that down as two different?
Yeah, I would personally write those down as different segments. So they're different.
And you'll do different plans.
Well, so this is where it starts to become interesting, because if you've got multiple segments, what you then have to figure out is that what you don't want to end up doing is those people should share the problems. They should all have the same problem, and you should be able to solve that problem with the same solution. If you can't solve their problems with the same solutions, then you arguably need to pick one or do a different plan for the different segments and see where you want to start.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense, because sometimes, because it's slight shifts, it's different nuances.
Yeah, so this is where one thing that I think people sometimes do is that they generally think about too big a customer base to start. So the more you can really articulate and identify who that customer is down to a specific niche of people, the easier it is for you to articulate and come up with a proposition that those people will buy.
Okay.
So, for example, even if you think about, you know, even then, those challenges there, thinking about, am I focusing on people in the UK or people in their home country, presents you a whole range of difference about how you'd get to those customers. So number 4, channels, for example. Immediately what you've got to do is you can't just market in the UK, you've got to go market in that target country. And if you're saying it could be in any country, so you've got to start marketing in 140 countries across the world.
Well, you can't do that.
Which is not necessarily easy or cheap. So you could draw out all your segments, then go, well, actually, my first segment is I'm going to stick to the UK.
Okay, so that's a good way to actually hone it down a little bit more.
Yeah, because as you start to think through all of the questions, you'll start to think about, well, actually, can I do that to start with? Is that realistic? And again, remember that the plan could change. So over a period of time, you could have a really big picture of where you want to be, but then you've got to think about what am I going to do specifically to market this stuff?
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does, yeah.
Is it right if I ask something? This is one of the things that we struggled with, is because what we've realized with our products is that each individual product actually can be marketed to so many different streams, avenues, and in some respects it's confused us, and from the very beginning, because we knew that the way the technology we were using and what we were doing with it could be used in so many different ways. Everyone along the line is always saying to us, you've got to cut this down, you've got to cut this down, and concentrate on one thing. I guess what the fear is that you choose the wrong one, and then
do you know what's worse than picking the wrong one, Paul?
Not at all, I guess.
Not picking one.
All right. And creatively, it's frustrating for us, because we know that, like, for example, we're working on our MVP now. And so, because we've had all these big products and ideas, and we've developed them, like you were saying, try not to overdevelop and things like this. And we've gone, okay, we're going to concentrate on the MVP, but even that can be used in so many different ways. And I know it's weird. It sounds like everything's going really well, and in some ways it is, but it's also becoming a block, because and
that's not uncommon.
Yeah, we don't know what to do to get past it. Is it just make a decision then? Just
make a decision.
All right.
I know that sounds really. We'll come back to you in a second, Mariella. If I just come up, so I know that sounds really flippant, Paul.
No, I think it's true.
But one of the most common things one of the most common challenges I see in founders of businesses, the most common challenges is making a decision.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that sounds really, really easy, but when it's your business and you think you might get it wrong and you've got to pick, it's really hard. Most founders absolutely struggle with it.
Yeah.
But it does come back to make a decision. But the thing about it is, with your MVP, you can absolutely do things in a way that should enable you to make an advised decision.
Yeah.
So, if you think it can be used in several ways, then what I'd be suggesting is that you think about, well, okay, let's write down all the ways it could be used, and let's find 5 to 10 people who could actually use it to do those things, and we find those people.
Yeah.
I'd then be thinking about, right, let's ask them for money, if you can do that. And then based on that, would they give us money? How much would they give us? And what feedback do we get? Right. And then from there, you could potentially pick the one or two that A, look like they're going to give you the most money, and B, looks like you're closest to solving their problem.
Okay, that's good.
You can always go back to the others.
Yeah.
Later on, you're not stopping. You're not closing any doors.
They then become that's extra revenue as opposed to a constant stream, for example.
Yeah. So what you want to try and do is you want to try and get to. So let's go back to the Airbnb example. Their first port of call was literally trying to find travelers coming to San Francisco.
Yeah.
It wasn't trying to find travelers who were in New York. It wasn't trying to find travelers in Boston. It was like, right, we're going to stay with San Francisco because it's easy. It's accessible. Yeah. I can do it. I can control it. So generally what you try and do is you try and dominate one particular vertical or horizontal or one particular problem for one type of person first.
Yeah.
Once you do that, you can then think about, well, how would this sell to another industry or another vertical or another type of problem? Don't try and generally solve the problem for everybody.
I think that's what we're doing. We're forced, only because we know it can, as opposed to it being a forced thing. It's just literally, it has such potential. It's ridiculous, but it's just focusing it, I guess.
You're absolutely right, Paul. It is that focus. Is that, and this is like you can't. It's really easy to get distracted by the gazillion pound opportunity. What you've got to get to is get to 10 customers.
Okay, yeah, I've written that. That's one of the main things I've written down today.
Get to 100.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Matt, we'll come back to you in Judith. Mariella, if that's Mariella.
Yes.
Come back to you in a
So
second.
I just have 5 minutes because I need to pick up my daughter in the preschool. So my first problem is, do you think that we can reduce the hour to 9:30 to 11:30? Because I really want to participate of all and don't go every Wednesday half an hour before. That's something that you consider.
Yeah, I can speak to Anthony about that.
Nice,
Okay,
nice
just
skin of
think
finance.
about it. If not, I just hurry up and speak before 11:30. So basically, my problem.
Could everyone
Well,
just reply in the
I
chat,
have.
say yes or no to that question, if that's okay?
Yes.
I don't mind.
Thanks. Sorry, Mariella, carry on.
Okay. Awesome. So I have the same problem. When I started Daily Mind, I want to offer health and well-being to everyone. And I want to offer, actually, in my website, you see that it's divided by age, and I offer even plus 65 to children, to parents, and I got crazy selling products to everyone. So now I'm trying to narrow, because I learned the painful lesson, that I don't have a clear speech. I don't have a clear marketing strategy, because I cannot create a speech for everyone. So, or it's very hard, at least right now. So I'm trying to narrow to parents with children of 0 to 6 years. And that's all for now. But I still have a lot of products, and the website still offer all the options. So, but that is okay just to focus my marketing strategy to this public.
Yep.
It is okay. And the website is still gonna have the products for couple, parents, young people, home care, like Paul, like I see all the benefits of my products to all these products. It's okay to narrow to this one, but they still have the products in the website?
Yeah, I think so. I think the thing I would say is that depending on how you build your products out, depends on who you're targeting. So I think if you were going for a smaller niche, so say 6 to 10, I think you'd be better off having 10 products for the 6 to 10-year-old than one product for 6 to 10, and one for 10 to 14, and one for 15 to 22, and one for 22 to 50, and one for 50 to 75. You're better off having go deep, because
so
you've got more chance of capturing them. And again, it comes back to Paul's thing. It's a risk. You've got to make a choice, but you'll have more chance of success, and you'll know whether you're getting it wrong. That part of the challenge with not choosing is that all it does, it just kicks the can down the road, and you think you're getting somewhere, and you think you might be making progress, but you're really not. All you're doing is you're just kicking the decision further on down the road. You've got to go all in.
Yeah.
So in my case, that I already have the products, should I do a sale in December? Like, I should dismiss all the products of the adults products?
Try it. Just try stuff. So maybe take them off for a week, and then put them on for a week, and do some real marketing based on real targeted things to show them without them, and see what difference it makes.
Yeah, I already reduced the products because I realized that the people get in, but they get lost because it's too many options that it's not clear the offer.
Yeah, so take them out then.
So I reduce it, and it's working because I have few sales.
Yeah, cool.
So I probably need to reduce it more, but I feel like bad because I have the products, and how I not gonna sell it?
It is the unfortunate reality is that there's no answer. There's no right answer. You sort of have to find your way. And anybody that says they've got the answer for you is lying to you. They do not have the answer. The only people that will find the answers are you guys here for your businesses.
Okay,
Judith.
I got it. So I'm going to say bye for today, and probably next week I'm going to be the full session. And it's been very nice to meet you all. So see you next week.
Mariella, if you could just have a look and try and fill this in the meantime, then maybe we can start next week, and you can feed back on your lean model canvas.
Okay, awesome.
Okay.
Judith Judith, then Carolyn, I think.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. I'm a little bit apprehensive about filling in this chart because I feel I'm at an even earlier stage where I'm defining the concept of what I want to offer. And mine, I found today very helpful, and it's refreshed my thinking. Mine would be two-pronged. because I want to offer a pathway for consumers, but I also want to offer a pathway for professionals. And I want to do that in one offering. I had this idea many years ago, and I was going to offer it in a live scenario. And now, given coronavirus, etc., and listening to you today, I feel I can move it online. So I want to offer two pathways, and I just want to think that through, because I'm almost wondering if there should be two charts then.
Yeah, I think
how I'm solving the problem,
Mm.
The customer segments, the USP, but it would be all tied up in one bundle.
Yeah, so
there would be two pathways.
Yeah, so invariably, if you are building a product for individuals and consumers and professionals, whatever that
Yes.
product or service may be, invariably those are, from my experience, always end up to be two different things. It's
Right.
really hard. Again, you sort of, my suggestion would be think about picking one to start, because
Right.
if you try and do both, the risk is that you end up satisfying neither of them to the degree that you really need to give them value.
Right. Okay.
Because somebody, if that makes sense, try and do it on one chart. It may be that you absolutely can do it, Judith. Try and do it. I think even though you're early on, I think the questions that these lean canvases are really helpful from day one. So it's like helps you formulate your idea, and just the questions help you think through all the things that you need to think about. So
Yes.
think about it as one question, and then you're intelligent and experienced enough to know actually that sounds like it's two things. Because if you start to get some of the answers to questions in the way that the channels that you go through, if your channels are very different, if you go to the solutions that they want are very different. So for example, an individual may be less likely to buy a subscription, whereas a business may be more likely to buy a subscription. Individuals generally don't like spending more than like a tenner. A company might spend 200. And those differences, if you get them all down on one piece of paper, you might think, well, actually, they are two different things. They may be one thing, but you'll only know by going through and answering those questions, or at least thinking through them. Okay,
thank you. What this morning has helped me to refine in my own mind that while a lifestyle business is great fun, a lifestyle business for me in the past certainly became a business where people wanted to buy it. I didn't sell my business the first time around, and I had huge satisfaction building it up. And I'd like to do it successfully this time. I'd like to be able to sell it within 3 to 5 years. So there we are.
Oh, it sounds like you did it successfully before, Judith.
It was huge fun. You mentioned you need 3 things. You need planning, you need money, time, and luck. And I made my own luck, but I had a big dose of luck. And that kept me going for the next 10 or 15 years. So there we are.
Absolutely.
So thank you. This morning has been very, very helpful. I'm going to try and look at this chart and maybe look at it in 2 separate ways. And I think it could come together in what I have in mind.
Absolutely.
But I think the planning would have to be separate. So thank you for your good advice.
No, you're welcome, Judith.
It'll probably be interesting to be informative when you hear some other people feeding back into what they've done as well, Judith. Carolyn, did you have a question as well?
Yes and no, sort of a question. I just kind of wanted to put it out there to ask Andrew if I'm going down the right direction in terms of the problem that I've got in my head, which I've never thought about it from this way before, is for me the problem is the general media has a one-sided view of behavior around technology, and it's a negative view because negativity gets eyeballs and sells papers and gets advertising revenue. So from that perspective, in my head, my solution is presenting a two-sided view of human behavior around technology.
Caroline, can I stop you there?
Hmm.
Could we So my question about your problem is, who's that a problem for?
That is a problem for, well, for many people, for parents, for agencies, for academics, for not actually academics, for businesses. It's kind of, they've got a very specific perspective of
okay,
how.
So why is it a problem for them?
Because they're building solutions based on a one-sided view. So they're building products.
Why is that a problem? Why is that a problem?
That is a problem because they are not then solving the issue in a way that is effective or completely effective.
But does that apply to, you mentioned individuals, researchers, professionals? Does that same thing apply to all of those people? So the problem for a parent, that's a very different articulation of a problem that gives the parent than it gives a professional.
Yeah.
So that's what you need. The question I was going to say is, think about the problem from the consumer, the person that's buying your product perspective. So what problems are you solving for the parent or the researcher or the professional?
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
It
does make sense. Yes, thank you for that. And I kind of, part of that whole thing was when you're talking about who's going to buy into this. And I've never thought about that before, or one of the things I haven't thought about before is, because I've always done it from the parents and journalists, I need to give them information, but actually where the money is in business and agencies. So it's really kind of the first 1,000 or the first kind of couple of clients for me is then around businesses and agencies. So someone who's building digital products. So
right.
How do I help them
so
build digital products? And how do I help businesses who are using digital products within their corporations? So that's kind of, I think that's where I really need to get the problem and the solution. Yes? No?
Yeah, and no, absolutely. I mean, it sounds like you've, just by simply starting to think about those questions in your head, what you tend to find is the questions are more important than the chart, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
What you can start to do is, whenever I talk to startups, I literally now, I go through those 10 questions in my head and I can just go, right, you'll get the challenges you've got as a business are here, 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 and here. Because those 10 questions sort of cover everything. So what sounds like you've been doing is really quickly going through those questions, and you've already realized that actually, if I speak to the parents, they're probably not going to be able to have much money to give me. So maybe I need to think more about a business. And so therefore you start thinking, well, if that's the case, what problem do I need to solve for them? How does my idea resolve to those guys for a problem, not the parent, because the parent can't give me revenue enough. So it's just by iterating through those questions as a whole that hopefully what will happen, and you're not going to do it in 20 minutes, is that what will happen is that your idea will really start to resonate, and you'll start to see all aspects of what you're trying to do, rather than just thinking about, I've got this great idea. If that makes sense.
It does make sense, because that's what I had as a great idea, but actually to monetize it and make money from it, it has to focus on the first £1,000.
Yeah, absolutely.
Instead of the next 10 years, because I've been thinking about 10 years, not now.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You've got to think about, where am I going to be in 3 months, 6 months? How do I get those first 10 paying customers, and what will they buy?
What will they buy? I'm running out of room on my page.
That's all right.
What will they buy?
You can
they'll buy a book.
They'll buy a book.
They will. So
they will. Yeah, increasingly, apparently.
So.
Yeah, book sales are increasing at the moment, aren't they?
Can I ask another question? Can I ask another question? I have a daughter who lives in Spain who might be very interested in these seminars, and I wonder if if you can send me the link so I could email it on to her. Would that be acceptable? So she could join us next time?
Oh, sorry, Judith. That was probably a question for me, wasn't it?
It was.
Yes, sorry. Can we? can we speak at the end, and we're just going to go into a bit more detail, if that's all right?
Yes, fine.
Yeah, sure. Great.
I just didn't want to email it without your permission to do that, that's all.
Yeah, thanks. I'll give you a call when we've finished and just to talk through a little bit more, if that's okay.
Yes, thank you.
So interestingly, one of the differences between the business model canvas and the lean canvas is, as John, you filled out the business canvas, which is really good. I was just looking at it now. But one of the big, I think the challenges on the business canvas is that it doesn't force you to think about the problem. It really doesn't dive you deep into what problem am I absolutely solving. And I think that's sort of a bit of a gap that you end that I, from my, I've done business model canvas stuff and you do it, it's really useful, but I find the lean, just thinking about the problem really helps to articulate and drive through that value of the solution, which I think the business model canvas tends to miss a little bit.
Okay.
Because I look at that business model canvas and I understand it, and I, completely buy into all the community cohesion stuff is really good, but I still come back to is what's the problem?
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying it won't work, but so immediately, if I think about your proposition, if you're thinking last mile, so I'm thinking, well, actually, who's your customer for this?
Well, I think it's suppliers.
But all they want to do is drive down price.
Sorry?
All they want to do is drive price down. They want to make that last mile as cheap as possible.
Yes.
Amazon, Hermes, DPD, all the people that you're playing against in that market, if you want to go to big suppliers, they're at that last mile, it's solely price. They're not interested.
Yes, and my understanding is that it's the last mile or the last leg of these journeys, which is the most expensive for the operators and the suppliers to do, and it and the full cost isn't passed on to the customer because it's price sensitive. But what makes me different, and I don't know if this helps answer the question, is that what I'm offering is the prospect of delivering to multiple households in one drop. So I'll be incentivizing households to cooperate. So I'll be facilitating, making it easy for households to consolidate their orders, and it's that consolidation which brings the cost down, the true cost down.
So you're going to have a delivery hub. So
yeah, micro logistics hubs. I mean, I think the trend in logistics now is for urban logistics hubs on the outskirts of urban areas. But what I'm proposing is an extension of that idea and creating neighborhood micro logistics hubs, which a typical consolidation hub on the outskirts of a city would be, I mean, some operators actually use containers, shipping containers,
yeah,
or they just use one of their lorries as a consolidation hub, and there's all sorts of different designs. But So I'm sort of taking that idea one step further and having neighborhood or household hubs. So if you imagine households connecting through a virtual platform, an online platform, and as a group, they nominate one of the households to be a pick-up and drop-off point for the other households. And all these households are within 5 minutes walking distance of each other. So it's not an on-demand service. It's asking people to have regular weekly deliveries of their shopping, and there's research shows that people are willing. You know, the dominant what people tend to want is a same day or next day delivery. But if people understand that by waiting they're going to reduce their carbon footprint, there's evidence to suggest that people are happy to have a regular weekly delivery on the same day each week.
Okay.
And everybody in that hub has their delivery at the same day at the same time.
Okay. So what? So your customer is more of a. So as a consumer, I would basically use a different address to get everything delivered, which, for example, could be my. So I, as a consumer, I could let people in my road use my garage. So I could they would use my address. Everything would get delivered to my address, and then basically once a week, I or somebody would then take those deliveries out to all of the people that have delivered to that address.
Yeah, so
Cool.
for the larger hubs, there would be like a voluntary coordinator who would receive the deliveries. So somebody who's retired, for example, somebody that's at home. So for the working families, it's a convenience. So the idea is that people can collect their shopping from their neighbour, or their neighbour will deliver them. Just, you know, if say you've got an elderly isolated person that finds it difficult to get about, then the hub coordinator will drop the stuff off. You know, it's a 5-minute walk down the road, just drop it off for them. So there's a social support function built into it.
Can I just say something on that? It's very much like the Bombay tiffin box. Have you ever seen anything about that? The Bombay tiffin boxes, where all the people make lunch for their husbands. They take it to one place. They take it. They spread it all out. It goes all over the city. Delivers to all things. Pick it all up. Take it all there. A place that gets all recycled, or people who, you know, waste is given to other people, all washed, all put back on the places every day. That happens.
Yeah, they operate similar systems in South Korea. I've stayed in South Korea, and they have that similar sort of system where they collect up all the so it's a more coordinated rather than an on-demand system.
Yeah, so that's good. It's very good.
So the thing I would say, John, is that doesn't come out in your plan.
Okay.
What you've just said to me, is absolutely brilliant, but that's not what your business plan is. That's not what your business model canvas that you've written is not what you've just said.
Okay. All right. Okay. I'll have another go. Yeah.
We've got 10 minutes left. So
yeah, I've got a hard stop at 12 as well. I've got another call, but
okay. So does somebody want to feedback on what they've been able to do so far? Cecile?
Yeah, I'm finding this really interesting because I'm doing what Andrew suggested, the why is this a problem, why is this a problem? And it's coming down to more and more the fact that there are, you know, so say for example, just one thing is like lack of books because it's printed as well. So, and why is that a problem? It's a problem because people are frustrated, they can't improve themselves. And why is it a problem? Because they cannot go more forward on their, you know, self-improvement. It's a problem because it reduces their opportunities, and therefore. So I'm finding that quite interesting to come down to really what it is. It's like, you know, if you're learning the language, you don't know how to pronounce the words, you feel shame. It's a problem because you feel shame because you won't want to make mistakes because you don't want to make mistakes. And why is that a problem? Because you won't reach your potential. And why is it a problem? Because it means that you're disenfranchised, you're a bit frustrated. So I'm finding that all quite fascinating, just to let you know.
Cool, good. Yeah, that asking why is really important. Just keep asking why. So there's even a book about 5 whys, I think it is. You should be able to level down to 3 to 5 levels of asking why before you get to the real problem.
Yeah, so I tried to do that earlier, but I got unstuck.
Yeah,
but now I'm starting to sort of get into it. So thank you, I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's hard. It's not it's simple but not easy.
Yeah,
we'll certainly be exploring why the value proposition in next week as well.
Anybody else got any thoughts or questions? Yes, Judith.
Well, I've done an initial stab at this, and I've done it by writing down 2 columns, one headed up consumers and one headed up professionals. And I've tried to very quickly answer all the 9 questions for both of them. And some of the numbers have question marks against them because it's not clear in my mind. So would you like me to make a start?
Yeah, I mean, you don't. Yeah, I mean, I think the thing is, Judith, it's you can't do this in 20 minutes, really. It's literally just for you to go through, think through it. It will take time. I've taken weeks over some of this. Sometimes I've done these things and I've taken weeks over them. Just, and I'll do it. I'll put my right thoughts down, then I'll come back. I'll go back to it. I'll go back to it a week later, come back to it a day later, talk to people, go back, change it. So it's a very reflective and moving feast, or it can be until you're happy with it. So don't necessarily expect it to all just pop out easily. Some of these things are quite challenging to think through. As long as you feel you've made a good start, then that's fine. I mean, by all means, you can send it over and I'll happily have a look and we can go through it. That's fine.
Okay. Well, what this morning has helped me with, without going into detail then, is on the consumer side of my idea, it would be UK based. And on the professional side of my idea, it would be worldwide. It would be open to companies from around the world. So it would need, so it's 2 different marketing strategies. But it's quite interesting to look at the columns side by side. Yeah. So that's emerged for me today. Thank you.
Good.
I think it would be useful maybe to revisit these next week. So there's something for everyone to give you a time. Always good to have a milestone in place, but if we can come back and just have a look at these when we start off next week, would be a good way to reflect on what we've done today. Paul, how have you got on?
Yeah, I've just been listening to everyone else at the moment. I haven't written anything yet because I want to talk with my partners so that I don't waste my time. Plus I keep getting interrupted.
The interesting thing on that, Paul, is based on the number of partners you've got,
yeah,
what I might suggest is you write it down separately.
Oh, everyone, yeah, okay, that's a good idea.
So what I always do if I've got co-founders and we're doing this, I get them to write it down separately, and then the exercise is basically you write it down and you bring them back and you see how aligned you are. Because I guarantee you'll probably end up thinking you've got 3 different businesses.
No doubts, yeah.
Well, actually, if you've got three fellow co-founders, you'll probably end up thinking you've got about 10 different businesses, actually.
That's the worry, especially with the way ours is so diverse.
In my experience, yeah, and that's the, part of the challenge as a founding team.
I'm actually a bit nervous, to be honest.
You've sort of got to get on the same page.
Yeah. Well, luckily we all get on pretty well, and one of our sort of provisos from the start was to be ultra honest with each other because we were mates beforehand. So it's just like, if we're not truthful with each other, we're going to end up creating animosity. One of the fun questions that you'll need to have at some point in time is who's in charge. Me. And I'm joking. They're going to watch this video back and be like, you arrogant one.
And if your answer to that is all of us, go back and rethink, because that doesn't work.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I think we all naturally slot into different different places, and it gels pretty good, to be honest.
Yeah, it will be until you've got a problem.
Okay.
So so this is a really good example of at some point in time you will have to. How many of you are there?
There's 4 of us. So there's the three founders, and then we've got a lady called Danny who came on board to help out as well. She's quite good at diffusing us, to be honest.
Okay, so if you think of her as like a bit of a co-founder as well, and she's in all the conversations.
Yeah, yeah.
What happens when it's 2 versus 2?
Wow.
Who makes the decision? Who chooses? Who picks? Somebody has to. I've been.
At the moment, what we've done I love this. It's like being back at drama school, man. You sit there and all they do, you're like, is why? Yeah, but why? But why? Ah! You want to explode. I think up to now what we've done is normally we've agreed that if we feel strongly about things, we literally have to state our case almost in writing.
Yeah.
You know, when we're typing to each other, and whoever's got the strongest case, the other ones concede. That's the way we've been doing it so far.
Yeah.
When it gets busy, who knows what's going to happen?
Yeah. So my last business, there were 4 of us.
Yeah.
The first one there were 3. Yeah, and it's an interesting dynamic. It's a good. You'll have fun.
It's okay. It's been okay. We've all organically growing, like, cause we've all got other jobs and stuff for the last sort of 4.5 years. So I think if anything terrible is going to happen, it would have happened by now.
Yeah, maybe.
You have that smile of experience there.
Don't let me get my spiritual head on. I'm a Tai Chi teacher. You know, just because it's your experience doesn't mean it will be ours.
Very true. Yeah, that's very true.
We've got 3 minutes. So in fact, I think probably should just pause there. And so can I just come back and just pick up on a few things that we talked about before. Andrew, first of all, thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, amazing.
I'm sure you've all found it really, really helpful. We will come back to this next week, and we will pick up on this, and we will then start looking at the value proposition, which is about really kind of drilling down into that problem and into those customers and understanding why it is, and kind of trying to develop and build up around, I guess, kind of identifying who we really are focusing on to begin with. And I think, the point was made earlier on that, you can have lots and lots of potential customers, but actually, as Andrew said to Paul, you need to make some decisions and decide on where is the sweet spot, which is worth putting your initial focus on, because otherwise you just get spread too thin.
Yeah.
And if you get spread too thin, then you can't actually achieve anything. So I think looking into that would be good. One of our supporters is called Steele Raymond. They are solicitors, and they've come up with things to think about in terms of forming a business, and particularly from the legal capacity. It's a 1-pager PDF, so I'll share that with all of you in a moment as well, and I'll just email that out to everybody. So just, I know a couple of you had to go, but are all of you kind of into this? Are you planning on coming to all of the sessions, or are some of you just wanted to dip into some of them?
At the moment, personally, I think I'm just going to do whatever.
Yeah,
I booked all of them into my diary.
Brilliant. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's fantastic.
I will attend all of them.
It's really nice to kind of have that sort of cohort feel. And so I was going to ask, would you like me to set up a WhatsApp group so you can start to have conversations outside of this as well? And yeah, okay.
Yeah, like that.
All right. Well, I'll do that. I'll make sure I've got all of your details. Yeah, I think I've got all them all, so that's fine. And I think that's it. Oh yeah, sorry, there's that last point from about the timing. So Carolyn, you can only do from 10, you can't do before 10 o'clock.
No, unfortunately I can't, because I already had a 10 to 11, which I've moved from 9 to 10, but I can't move it again. It'll be too much to ask.
Well, I think, to be honest, the ending of the sessions is really going to be focusing on homework. I'd like to try and implement some homework. And if there isn't homework for each of these sessions, then probably we'll finish within an hour and a half anyway. So I think we just need to keep the times the way that they are.
Thank you. That would be really great.
I will go back to Mariella to tell her that. Judith, I'll give you a call in a second just to talk about your daughter. And any final questions before we finish?
Yeah, I do. Will we get access to the video?
I'd
like my partners to watch it, basically, because they need to kind of hear everything that's just been said, and they can't always necessarily make it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm slightly hesitant just in terms of I'd really like people to feel a sense of openness and being able to.
Okay, yeah, no, I understand. All right, that's right. I'll encourage them to. Is it possible to, if we get one of my partners to sort of come online, can we do that, or?
Yeah, I think that's okay. As well as going to talk to Judith about that. You know, that it's fine because I mean, normally, you know, there are quite often there's more than one founder, so everyone having that same conversation. What we might do is to create some little breakout rooms. So if you want to talk amongst yourself about something, you'll be able to go somewhere else, so we don't have to be part of the conversations that you can have between yourselves.
Yeah.
But that's all doable.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Will you be emailing us some of your slides you mentioned?
Yeah, I can send all the slides to you. That's absolutely fine.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
I need to jump off, guys. So great to meet you all.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thanks, Andrew.
Everybody, I will speak to you later. Take care.
Otherwise, same time, same place next week.
Excellent. Yeah.
Great.
Brilliant. All right, we'll see you all here, and I'll be in touch next week to send out the details again.
Thank you.
All right, thanks very much then.
Bye, everyone.
Cheers. Bye, guys.
Bye. Thank you very much.
Bye,
to
nice
meet
meeting you.
Yeah,
Likewise.
cheers.
Right, good luck. We're going to smash this.
Hopefully.
Cheers. Cheers.